Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 145 for you guys today. And to kick off this week's episode, I'll be sharing my fight prediction for the fight taking place this weekend in the sport of boxing between Sebastian Fundora and Keith Thurman. On the PBC pay-per-view card, you will see Sebastian Fundora defend his Super Welterweight Championship, WBC Super Welterweight Championship, against Keith Thurman in the main event of that PBC card this Saturday in the sport of boxing. So let's dive into the storylines heading into this WBC Super Welterweight Championship fight. First storyline is, can Sebastian Fundora send a strong message to the Super Welterweight division? Now, in my opinion, I think the Super Welterweight division right now, based off of the names, based off of the talent, and based off the huge possibilities of some 50-50 fights that we could see down the line at this division, I think 154 is the best division in boxing today. And I think Sebastian Fundora has already became one of, if not the best fighter at this division. Right now, I think he's number one. And he's a former unified champion at this division. He's unbeaten at 154. And if you guys remember back in 2024, he won the WBC and the WBO titles. Now, obviously, we know the WBO titles elsewhere, with Alexander Zayas collecting the title down the line after that 2024 fight between himself and Tim Tszyu. But he was a former unified champion, and Sebastian Fundora has some big victories against Erickson Lubin, and Tim Tszyu has defeated Tim Tszyu now twice in his boxing career. So he has the right intentions to be a fighting champion, wants to fight the best of the best. Now he has a huge opportunity against what was known as one of the best welterweights once upon a time ago, and Keith Thurman, if he could add that legendary win to his resume. And next, can Keith Thurman still prove to the world that he's still got it? Now, Keith Thurman has actually been Mr. Inactive. Mr. One Time has only fought 3 times since 2019. That's a lot of inactivity over the last 7 years. And he was supposed to fight back in 2024 against Tim Tszyu. If you guys remember, that was supposed to be for a vacant title that night. But fast forward, the injuries caught up to Keith Thurman while he was in training camp. Sebastian Fundora stepped up. He was already supposed to fight on that card, stepped up to the main event scene, won 2 titles that night, defeating Tim Tszyu, and stole Keith Thurman's shine and his spotlight. But injuries has been a reason why Keith Thurman has been inactive, and that concerns me a little bit heading to this fight. He's a little older, in his late 30s now, and inactivity is not your friend, especially fighting a top-tier fighter like Sebastian Fundora. And I think Keith Thurman is one hell of a fighter. He's clearly proved that in the prime of his career. We still want to see what he's still got at this point of his boxing career. And he's a former welterweight champion, and he has some big wins at welterweight at 147 once upon a time ago against Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Mario Barrio. So he has always wanted to fight the best of the best. Now we're going to see what he could do against Sebastian Fundora with possibly one more title opportunity in his grasp in his boxing career. But enough of the storylines. Let's get to the tail of the tape here. Starting off with the challenger, Keith Thurman. Keith One Time Thurman. He's 31 and won 31 victories, 1 loss in his boxing career. Has 23 victories coming way of knockout. Stands at 5'9" with a reach of 69 inches. Then I'm looking at the champion, Sebastian Fundora. Sebastian Fundora has 23 victories, 1 loss, 1 draw to his boxing career. 15 victories come way of knockout. Currently the reigning, defending WBC Super Welterweight champion. Stands at 6'5" with a reach of 80 inches. So there is a huge height and a huge reach advantage in favor of the champion, Sebastian Fundora. We'll see that if he uses the height and reach to his advantage once these two respective fighters get in the boxing ring with each other Saturday night in the sport of boxing. But these are the following game plans that I have for these fighters to follow if they want to walk out of Vegas in the MGM Arena with that coveted WBC championship. Starting off with the challenger, Keith Thurman. Now, I think it's going to be very important for Keith Thurman to fight in the inside here against Sebastian Fundora. You got to find a way to crack the code against the giant, the cheat code in Sebastian Fundora at the super welterweight division. And it's not impossible for anybody saying, why would he do that? If you guys have done your homework, done your research, watched Sebastian Fundora in the past, there's a guy that fought on the inside and brought the fight to Sebastian Fundora and cracked the code of how not only to defeat him, but knock him out. And that was Brian Mendoza when he fought Sebastian Fundora years ago in the sport of boxing. He fought in the inside and knocked him out, landing combination. So it has been done and it is proven that Sebastian Fundora is not invincible in the ring. So I think Keith Thurman has to fight in the inside, use his boxing IQ, use his boxing experience, because he has the more experience over Sebastian Fundora and their two respective boxing careers. Do that to see if you can crack the code against the cheat code and Sebastian Fundora in the inside. Next, I think Keith Thurman is going to have to use feints to confuse the champion Sebastian Fundora here. He's going to have to use the right hand in the inside. Now, the right hand is one of Keith Thurman's best shots in his toolbox and his arsenal during his boxing career. Land the left hook, follow with the overhand right. Now, I'm going to say that combination again. Land the right hook in the inside, the left hook with the overhand right. And that combination, those are the combinations that Keith Thurman likes to land, if you guys followed his boxing career. And that's the same combination that Brian Mendoza put together to knock out Sebastian Fundora a few years ago in the sport of boxing. So again, in the inside, I'm going to say this again, just in case if it happens Saturday night. In the inside, land the left hook, mix with the overhand right, and use the right hand in the inside. So it's possible. We'll see if Keith Thurman could do that. And last but not least, Keith Thurman needs to win the counterpunching battle. Now, he has to win the counterpunching battle, in my opinion, if he's going to steal the fight away for Sebastian Fundora, whether it's a knockout, surprisingly to some, or winning the points based off of winning the fight based off of points. So I think he has to have to win the counterpunching battle. He's going to have to stay patient, stay calm, cool, and collected. And I think he will have to play the waiting game at times with the height and the reach disadvantage that he faces facing a giant like Sebastian Fundora. So he's going to look to capitalize on Sebastian Fundora's mistakes and the inside, trying to win the counterpunching battle. And I think he should work to the body as well. I think that's one thing that Tim Tszyu should have done more when he fought Sebastian Fundora, the last opponent that has fought Sebastian Fundora. When they had the rematch in July, Tim Tszyu at times had success in the inside against Sebastian Fundora. And I think he could have done more damage landing shots to the body, and possibly could have had a momentum swing if he was slowing down the giant, landing some body shots. We all know all it takes is one good liver shot to shut the whole entire body down. You can't move. Your body's basically paralyzed. You can't get up off the canvas while the referee's doing his 10 count. So that could be very pivotal for the game plans that I have for Keith Thurman if he wants to steal away that WBC championship from Sebastian Fundora. Now let's get into the champion here, Sebastian Fundora. I think Sebastian Fundora is going to have to use his height and his reach to his advantage. Now, it's a clear mismatch, and do not let Keith Thurman fight in the inside if you're the champion, Sebastian Fundora. Now, Sebastian Fundora still is a good pressure fighter. He's proven that. Walking his opponents down is his bread and butter. That's when he's most comfortable in the boxing ring. And when he can walk his opponents down, put the pressure on them, and definitely use his height and reach to his advantage over smaller opponents that he tower overs. And he could use the jab here against Keith Thurman, use the jab, fight in the distance against Keith Thurman. That could open up the doors to set up traps against Keith Thurman, who could be overreactive defensively, I should say, of the offensive approach that Sebastian Fundora could bring to him in the ring Saturday night in that boxing ring. So again, I think Sebastian Fundora should use his height and his reach to his advantage. Do not let Keith Thurman get going on the inside, and you can block him out using the jab, shutting the door on him every single time that Keith Thurman tries to come in on the inside, and that could open the door for him to set up traps. And next, Sebastian Fundora should establish the power. Now, if he can establish the power here, he's going to be cooking with grease in that boxing ring, because he can get dirty in the inside. He is not afraid of a phone booth fight. And what I mean by a phone booth fight, both fighters fighting in the inside, getting dirty with each other, landing power combinations. Sebastian Fundora is not intimidated of that boxing style. He can get dirty in the inside. If it gets in the inside, he should establish his power, land the 1-2 combinations, the overhand right, the hooks, and the uppercuts, and the inside against Keith Thurman. And you can make Keith Thurman possibly quit and surrender to your power in that boxing ring. And Keith Thurman, this is what concerns me about the challenger here. He has not fought a caliber fighter like this since 2019. Hell, that was his last world title fight back in 2019 when he fought Manny Pacquiao. He has not shared the boxing ring with a dangerous boxer with power like this since 2019 when he fought Manny Pacquiao for the WBA welterweight championship. So this is going to be a huge test for Keith Thurman if he can swim in the deep water still at this point of his boxing career. But I think Sebastian Fundora should get dirty in the inside, land the 1-2 combinations, the overhand right, and powerful uppercuts to make Keith Thurman possibly quit and surrender to his power. And last but not least, I think Sebastian Fundora has to be alert defensively. This is very pivotal because Keith Thurman, even though he's facing a huge height and a reach disadvantage, he still has a puncher's chance here. And Keith Thurman has been in there with the best. I just named some of the guys that he shared the ring with at welterweight: Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, Mario Barrios. Those are some good caliber fighters. And he has to know how to pick his shots. Sebastian Fundora has to know how to pick his shots. Sebastian Fundora has been hurt with power shots in the past. It's not like this man is Superman or he's invincible. He's been hurt with some power shots, and at times he can leave his chin wide open in the boxing ring. So I've seen him get dropped against Erickson Lupin a few years ago. Even though he won that fight, Erickson Lupin landed the knockdown. It was actually the first fighter to knock down Sebastian Fundora in a professional boxing fight. I also seen Brian Mendoza, again with those combinations I just spoke on a few moments ago, in the inside, knock out Sebastian Fundora. Hell, in his last fight, I even seen Sebastian Fundora, he was trying to wow the crowd in Vegas in the MGM Arena, but I seen him take some unnecessary punishment when he fought Tim Tszyu in the rematch, leaving his chin wide open and not being alert defensively. So he has been caught and clipped with some punches. I know the game of boxing is you're going to get hit and absorb some shots, but he has to be alert defensively because you cannot afford to play around with your food and try to wow the fans and not box smartly, because that could be putting yourself in a world of danger against a dangerous veteran fighter in Keith Thurman. So those are the game plans that I have for these two respective fighters to follow. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Sebastian Fundora to defeat Keith Thurman by decision to successfully retain his WBC Super Welterweight Championship for this upcoming fight this weekend in the sport of boxing. Now, I think Sebastian Fundora, I favor him because he has the huge height and the reach advantage over the challenger Keith Thurman here. I mean, he has a 10 to 11 advantage inches in height and 11 inches to his advantage in the reach advantage for himself and Keith Thurman. So that is a huge mismatch if you're Keith Thurman. And if you guys followed the build-up for that fight, Keith Thurman would have to step up on a stepping stool or an additional chair to get face-to-face with Sebastian Fundora. So this could be a nightmare matchup for Keith Thurman as he's looking to become a two-division world champion. But I think Sebastian Fundora will not allow Keith Thurman to fight in the inside. I think Keith Thurman is going to be hurt a lot by Sebastian Fundora's jab that he's going to be using a lot to close the back door on Keith Thurman possibly trying to fight in the inside. I think Sebastian Fundora has a powerful jab. You're going to see that on full display Saturday night. And Sebastian Fundora, as big as he is, he's a giant. He's a cheat code. Somehow, somewhere, this man makes 154 pounds. But I think he will fight in different lateral movements to confuse Keith Thurman. And that's going to open the door for him to walk down Keith Thurman and fight in the inside. I told you guys a few moments ago, Sebastian Fundora can get down dirty in the inside. He has no problem making the fight a phone booth fight with his opponents. That's his type of style that he thrives in. He thrives in that type of environment in the boxing ring. I think Sebastian Fundora is going to land the 1-2 combinations to help him win this fight against Keith Thurman. I think he's going to land the hooks, the powerful overhand right, and some uppercuts on the inside to make Keith Thurman respect the power that Sebastian Fundora is going to put on him, and he possibly could surrender to these power shots. I think Sebastian Fundora could possibly score a knockdown. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores the knockout victory, the stoppage victory, in a similar way of how Sebastian Fundora made Tim Tszyu surrender to his power back in July when they fought, where Tim Tszyu retired on the stool and said no mas, and that's how Sebastian Fundora just retained his WBC title. So Keith Thurman, like I said, he's one of the best welterweights that we've seen over the last decade or so, and he's had some top tier wins against Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, but he has been inactive. Only 3 fights since 2019. That's concerning to me. And the last time he's faced a dangerous fighter with power like this was when he fought Manny Pacquiao back in 2019 when he suffered his first career loss, when he lost the WBA welterweight championship. And he has not fought in a championship fight since then. So that's why I favor Sebastian Fundora to defeat Keith Thurman by decision to successfully retain his WBC Super Welterweight Championship and send a message to, in my opinion, the best division in boxing at 154 pounds.